Alright, now, since we've done a lot of factor rainbows, and like I told y'all that the factor rainbows were going to be a big part in helping us simplify fractions, find equivalent fractions, and compare fractions. Well, here is where now a lot of that stuff is going to start to really make sense. And so today's lesson is more about simplifying fractions. So let's go over some vocabulary. A common factor is a factor that has two or more numbers in common. The simplest form is when the numerator and the denominator have no other common factors. Let me put this in here. No other common factors, or have no common factors other than one. And then remember, when we're talking about simplest form, it's also finding the equivalent fraction with the smallest numerator and denominator, or reduce the number of parts without changing what the fraction represents. And what we're going to be talking about in this lesson is the greatest common factor, which is the largest factor two numbers have in common. And we're going to work that by using some of our factor rainbows that we learned about. So now let's look at an example. We're going to try to simplify 6/9. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at it with a picture. Then we're going to apply the other math to it. Okay? So we switch colors here. And remember, as I always say, I'm going to try to draw this as evenly as I possibly can make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into 3 equal parts. And then I'm going to split it into 9 parts. Now I should have 9 parts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade in 6/9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when I'm looking at these 9 parts, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at a section. If I look at this section right here and say that this is one part with 3 smaller parts inside, right? And so here is also another part that is equal in size to this part right here. And remember that on the inside of this is 3 smaller parts that make up this one part. And then here we have another part. So we can also say that these 3 bigger parts that I created 3 equal parts, and inside of those 3 equal parts I had 3 little smaller parts. So this can also be 1, 2, 3 thirds. So let me write above this in another color. So this is 1, 2, 3. And out of those 3 equal parts, 2 of those 3 equal parts are shaded. So what I did is I just simplified 6/9 to 2 thirds, which they are also equivalent to each other. Now, let's look at the math that I did to do that. And let's look at how the greatest common factor works. So here's 6 and 9. Now, if I do a little factor rainbow for 6, what I have is 1 times 6, and then I have 2 times 3. Alright? And then for 9, I'm going to do it over here in another color. 9, I have 1 times 9, and then I also have 3 times 3. So when I'm looking for the greatest common factor, the GCF, I am looking for the largest number, or the largest factor that 6 and 9 both have in common. And when I look at that, I see that they both have the number 3. in common. And remember, when we are reducing fractions or simplifying fractions, we're using division. And like I said, when we simplify fractions, let's look at our vocabulary. The only common factors that we want our denominator and numerator have is 1. So this is what we're going to be looking at. So now, since the greatest common factor between 6 and 9 is 3, what we're going to do is we're going to divide the numerator by 3 and the denominator by 3. Because remember, whatever we do to the numerator, we have to do it to the denominator because we don't want to change what that fraction represents. So when we divide, 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And you see that we were able to simplify that to 2/3. And I forgot to put that our greatest common factor here is 3. Now, let's look at a factor rainbow for 2 and 3. And remember, we know that a fraction is simplified when the only common factors those two numbers have in common is 1. So 2 is 1 times 2. Then 3 is 1 times 3. The only factor they both have in common is 1. And we know that that is a simplified fraction. So I know that lesson was kind of lengthy, and we are going to do another example, and hopefully I'm going to try to shorten this one up just a little bit. But that is the end of our lesson on simplifying fractions.